And as you sit tall, close the eyes. Place the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. Just focus on the breath. Try not to have any expectations of what it should or shouldn't feel like. Instead, allow yourself to know that this gift of the breath carries with it the energy of prana, the blessings of divinity, the experience of life. It's the thread that connects us to ourselves, to each other, and to all beings everywhere. It's one of the threads. And so as you breathe in and as you breathe out, do so with gratitude. And send a little prayer out into the universe. May all beings everywhere come to realize the blessing, the gift, and the power of the breath. May all beings know sanctuary. May all beings know health and wellness. May all beings know happiness and peace. And then draw the hands together in front of the heart, and we'll chant the invocation mantras, taking a breath in. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana Andhva Ganapati Gum Hava Mahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jesta Rajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Besida Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Devo Brahataf Parvata Da Saraswati Achata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Kritachi Shagmam Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. And gently releasing the hands down and fluttering the eyes open. And so today I thought we will talk about some aspects of compassion and what it is to have metta, to experience, express, and to live with loving kindness. And so metta is a Buddhist concept, also a Hindu concept, and basically it means to carry within oneself the essence of loving kindness toward the self and toward all beings everywhere. Now, that's a hard thing to do. On a day-to-day basis, as we live in our life, somebody takes our parking spot, somebody spills something on us, somebody harms us in some way, shape, or form, somebody irritates us continually. We're constantly being influenced by preference. And the more that we're influenced by preference, the less accessible loving kindness becomes to us. So that's one hurdle. The other hurdle that we have, that we face on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute, second-to-second situation is how we feel about our own self. And so the way that we see ourselves in the mirror is typically the way that we see others, all other beings. We look in the mirror and we see someone who's not worthy, and that is the same reflection that we will look out into the world as. We look into the mirror and we see somebody who makes us angry, then that anger is going to be reflected out into the world. Whatever we see when we look in the mirror is what we see when we look out in the world. And some of you may be thinking, no, I'm actually really a lot nicer to other people than I am to myself. And the answer to that is, sorry, that's only because you were told you had to be. It's not because you really feel it. Yeah. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as resentment, right? So we've been told since we were little, be nice, smile, be kind, be friendly. We've been told all these, don't be angry. And so we try to do what people tell us, have told us in our life, what they've educated us to do, and we haven't put much thought into it. We put a little bit of thought into it, but not too much thought. So the two obstacles, well, actually that's three now. So the first obstacle, right? The second obstacle is the mirror, and the third obstacle is the education. So what we've been taught. And we've been taught largely to ignore ourselves in favor of others. So then we have to back up a little bit and say, well, what do I need to do then? How do I come about the embodiment of this experience of loving kindness? How can I genuinely have this experience? And it starts with the self. It starts with you looking in the mirror and being honest and accepting about what it is that you think you see. So when you wake up in the morning and you go into the mirror and you say, I'm not happy with the zit on my face, with the color of my hair, with the height, with the weight, with the wrinkles, with the whatever it happens to be, with the attitude, with the personality, with the worthiness, you have to look at that and accept that you feel that way about yourself. Accept it. 100%. I look in the mirror and I feel like a crappy person. Period. Just accept it. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't put a bunch of flowers or makeup over it. Don't try to perfume it away. Don't deny it. Because the only way that you can treat a wound is if you acknowledge that the wound is there. You ever watch like Grey's Anatomy or something? And there's always somebody who comes into the ER and the doctor says, when did you first notice this? All the medical shows do this, right? It's like good drama. When did you first notice this? Maybe a year ago. Why didn't you come in sooner? Because now it's a full-blown problem. So the first thing is acknowledging that it exists. You need to acknowledge how you feel about yourself. And then start to take that apart. Apply the proper treatment. I don't think I'm worthy. I'm not worthy. Maybe that's the thing. So then you need to look at that and ask yourself, what does worthy actually mean to you? What is the meaning of that? And where'd you get that meaning from? And why do you think you don't fit the bill? You start writing it down. Well, I have a tendency to say mean things. I have a tendency to be impatient. I have a tendency to make wrong decisions. What does that have to do with worth? You really need to start breaking it down so that you can understand the box that you're putting yourself into. Every time you look in the mirror and restate these negativities that keep you from knowing, experiencing, and sharing loving kindness. As you begin to break it down, what you see in the mirror, then maybe that the hard work starts. And that's the hard work of change. And the hard work of change is, well, I make poor decisions. I make decisions and they always hurt people. Well, first of all, nothing is always or never. And secondly, if you feel, if it's your opinion that you are constantly making poor decisions, then look at the decisions that you've been making and learn from them. Make different decisions. You're not here to be the expert already in how to live a good life, how to live a peaceful life, a content life. You're here in this embodiment to learn how to do that. So accept that with humility and say, I'm learning. I'm learning about the consequences of my choices. And I've learned that certain choices really do lead me down the road of suffering, and maybe some other people too. So I'll just make different choices and see what happens then. And so you make some new choices. It's going to be super uncomfortable. You're not going to like it, because we do tend to gravitate toward what is familiar, the familiar choices, the familiar languaging, the familiar behaviors, because we know what to expect once we get there. We're comfortable there. Even if it's uncomfortable, we're still more comfortable with that than with the unknown. So you start making different choices, a little bit at a time. And then you just analyze it. You analyze. It's not like, well, I made one different choice and it didn't work. I'm still not happy. Of course not. Because it's one choice out of 10,000 choices you make every day. It's a little bit at a time. You analyze that. You say, well, did that make me feel worse or better? Am I genuinely more balanced or patient with the outcome of that choice that I made? And then you just continue on to the next one. And you don't see one choice as the be-all, end-all. If only I could have that, then I'd be happy. Because that's just not the way life works. One choice is not going to be the be-all, end-all of everything. It may have some great importance to it, depending upon its level of importance, right? But it's not the be-all, end-all, because you've been given the gift of the breath. You've been given the gift of life. You've been given the gift of some longevity, whatever that, entails for you. You've been given the opportunity to change your mind again. So if you make a choice that is still not aligned with the higher purpose of the calling of the soul, then you make another choice. And you keep making them until you find the one that settles you, that gives you that sense of, okay, this feels healthier. This feels more holistic. This feels like the right track. This feels like it could potentially support me and my wellness. But just again, know that one decision isn't going to change everything. We often set ourselves up for that, You say, well, I go to yoga every week. Well, that's not enough. Sorry. It's just a start. That's a starting point. That's like putting your toe in the water. Yeah. Then everything else that you do in the other however many hours there are in a week, that's what you start to look at. And then you start to really see the amount of the work that has to be done, and that could be scary as all heck. And it's like, what do you mean once a week for an hour isn't enough? I thought that would be plenty. I mean, it carries me through. My Sunday yoga class carries me through like Tuesday. I actually had a student one time who said that to me. They said, yeah, come around Tuesday. Or maybe it was even Monday. I don't know. It was like some short period of time. What should I do? How do I make it last longer? I said, practice more. Stop seeing your practice as being that 1 hour, because it's not. It's every other hour. That 1 hour was easy in comparison. Yeah, so start seeing the rest of it as your practice. And whatever you learn on the mat, in those moments where you are practicing some semblance of self-kindness and taking care of yourself, take what you learned there and move it over, extrapolate it out so that it touches every other moment of the week. Keep practicing. Don't look at it like, well, it's carrying me through. It's like a wave that I'm riding. No, it's not. It's a weight that is pulling you into the very essence of the work to be done. That's what it is, People say once you start practicing yoga, life gets more difficult for a lot of people. And it's like, yeah, sure, it does. Absolutely. It's not a joyride. It's not. It's not an exotic, uplifting, I'm always going to be happy now because I can put my foot behind my head. That's BS. That's not real. What it is it's a weight. It tells you, open your eyes and open them now. And once you hear that, you can't not do it. It's like your eyes are open. You can try to shut them, but you're still squinting. You're still seeing some part of the little bit of truth that you uncovered. And so it's a weight that bears you down into the work that you have to do. And initially that can be very scary for people because all they wanted to do was come relax for an hour. They weren't really looking for the investment. They just wanted to come and feel good for an hour and then head out and have it carry them through the week. And now all of a sudden they're like, why am I questioning everything in the universe? Eventually, after the discomfort of that passes, then there's a comfort that it brings. It's a comfort. It's like initially asking the question, well, why do I lack my own self-worth? Why do I lack, empathy for myself? Why do I look in the mirror and want to punch myself? Why do I want to be violent with myself? Once we get over the discomfort of asking those very, very important questions, then suddenly those questions bring us comfort. They bring us comfort. You know why? Because it takes courage to ask them. Real courage. It takes bravery to look in the mirror and to acknowledge what we feel about ourselves. And that courage is something that you can build on. Because if you have the courage to look in the mirror and to say to yourself, I don't like you. My ego does not like you. My ego thinks that you are not worthy. My ego thinks that you are not pretty or handsome, that you're too short, too tall, too fat, too thin, too this, too that. You don't shine enough. You're not fake enough. You're not real enough. You're not enough. My ego thinks that of you. Once you can acknowledge that, then you can start looking at the difference between the ego as an unhealthy aspect of yourself and the soul, the heart within. You can start to look and start picking apart the lies that you've been telling yourself. And that takes courage. It takes courage to look, it takes courage to acknowledge and accept, and then it takes courage to change. So the courage is a building block. It's something that you can carry with you, and you can accumulate more and more of it so that the questions become easier to ask and the work becomes easier to acknowledge, accept, and do. And then, because the courage brings with it resiliency, the outcome is not so boxed in to a single thing. I'm going to like myself by next Thursday. I'm going to be a good person every moment from now on. I'm not going to suffer anymore. We see those things as being silly. Like, that's not realistic. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, first, you're probably going to like yourself even less because you're making yourself do the work. Second, after some period of time, you'll start having pity for yourself. And you got to be careful there. Because the heart is having compassion for the self, but the ego is trying to turn it into pity. Because the ego can really manipulate pity. It can manipulate pity into a slippery slope that carries you right back down into that self-hate again. So when you start feeling sorry for yourself, oh, well, I have had suffering, and I have had this, then just recognize that as like, that's not the end game here. Nope, this is a phase, and I'm going to move through this phase as quickly as possible, as quickly as I can, so that I can get to the actual genuine compassion for the self. And compassion for the self doesn't pat the self on the back and say, you poor thing. No. Compassion for the self isn't that. Compassion for the self is when we can look at life and all of its difficulties, all the things that have happened, all the little things, the medium things, the big things, and we can recognize, I've suffered. And sometimes that suffering has been because of my own choices. And sometimes that suffering has arrived through no fault of my own, through no asking of my own. Suffering has arrived spontaneously, maybe a car accident or something that I didn't ask for, something that I didn't earn myself. Other times suffering has arrived because of my own actions. But the suffering that continues, that is my choice. The suffering that continues is my choice. How I see it, how I handle it, and what I do with it is my choice. So if I say my life has been nothing but suffering and that's why I am the way I am today, that's my choice. That's something that can change. Because, there's a lot of resources in the world today. There's counselors, there's psychologists and psychiatrists, there's good people, there's Sangha, there's good teachers, there's people who can lead you away from the place of self-pity and into the place of compassion. Compassion is another building block, like courage. Pity is not a building block. Pity is a destroyer. Pity is an underminer, a manipulator. Pity is an excuse. Pitying the self gives you a way of comparing. How low or high am I in comparison to you? If I pity you, I put you below me. If I pity myself, I put you above me. Therefore, we can never be equal to one another. Does that make sense? So we have to stop with the pity and instead acknowledge it, acknowledge the tendency that it carries with it, how it shows up in our life, and then start learning ways to move toward compassion. True compassion for the self, a true acceptance of the suffering of the past, the suffering of the present moment, the continuation of suffering, and what I have to do with that. And it's not an acceptance like a cold, hard acceptance that says, well, I know my suffering was in the past, so I just have to detach from it and I'll be fine. You can't just detach from it. Some part of your personality has adopted it. Some part of your physical body, your nervous system, has adopted some part of it, the response that you had to it. So there's some aspect of it that you're still carrying with you. The way that you react to loud noises, the way that you react to people speaking sharp-toned to you, or the way that you automatically assume nobody likes you. Whatever it is, you've carried some part of it forward with you, and you need to look at it and say, so there most likely is a relationship between these two things. The suffering that I experienced in the past and the way that I'm responding and reacting in relationships today. And I really need to learn how to see clearly that the two things are not the same. Two things are not the same. And in my own path, because I oftentimes give the examples of that, because we can only ever talk to, what it is that we've experienced. In my own path, I had to go to counseling for a long time in order to be able to see the difference between those two things. To understand that the past is no longer happening. And that in this moment, I actually am okay. I really am. So the things in the past that were happening don't have to be a knock on my door today. Because they don't really have very much more to offer me. They happened? Yes. I suffered? Yes. Deeply? Yes. I carried a lot of it forward with me through many, many years. And when it got to a point where I wasn't making good choices, and I wasn't supporting myself to the degree that I could be, and in a moment I recognized it, and in that moment I went and I said, I need help. I need support. I need to learn how to maneuver this because I can't. I'm just too out of sorts with the PTSD and all of it. And because I opened up and asked, I received. And then I was very blessed as I'm sure many are, to have two absolutely amazing therapists, counselors, who walked me through and helped me to see what was going on and where it was coming from. And that I was still living in the past. I was waiting. I was waiting for it to show up again. I was waiting for it to knock on the door. I was waiting. I was waiting for the shadow in the corner. I was waiting. And I was spending my life waiting for the past to repeat itself. But the past doesn't repeat itself. Not really. The only thing that repeats itself is your behavior, your habitual behavior. So when I saw a shadow, my habitual behavior was cringe, get ready, prepare, constrict, hide, do something. So the only thing that was repeating itself was my behavior. The past doesn't repeat itself. Your behavior repeats itself if you allow it to. So I had to learn new behavior. I had to learn how, when there was a shadow, not to react. That was, I think, in all honesty, the hardest thing I've ever learned in my life, was that when I see a shadow, I don't need to react. Because the shadow was representing the past, which is no longer happening. And the odds of that shadow being the same shadow as the past is pretty low. Pretty low. And then the big question, but what if it is the same shadow as the past? What if it is? Well, I've learned some tools. I've learned some ways to protect myself. I've learned some ways to protect myself. And I will do the best I can to protect myself. But if all I'm ever doing is waiting for that shadow to be the same shadow as the past, then I'm missing all the space in between. When we come to a place where we can be even just a little bit more present in the moment, then when the shadow shows up, we either recognize that 99.999% of the time it's nothing. It's just a reaction. It's a habitual behavior on our part. We can start to let go of it a little bit. And then one day the shadow is something. It's not the past, because the past can't show back up again. It's done. The past is over with. So it's not the past, but maybe it is something. Well, my ability to learn how to be present actually also empowers me to know a better way of responding versus reacting in the event that the shadow does turn out to be something. Does that make sense? Yeah. It gives me an additional weapon. It gives me the clarity. It gives me a little bit of clarity. It lets me see a little bit clearer what's actually happening, what's actually going on. And then perhaps it empowers me a little bit more to make a choice that's going to better support myself. But it all starts with looking in the mirror and acknowledging what it is that you see, what you think you see, what you tell yourself you see. Because guarantee, every single person in this room is looking into a circus mirror. Every one of us is, to some degree, looking into a circus mirror. Your mirror might be very tall, like that taffy mirror, right? Or very short and squat. It could be the mirror that gives you 10,000 faces, but you're looking into a circus mirror. And the circus mirror is dirty. It's obscured. It's not letting you see with clarity. And so I had an interesting conversation with someone in class the other night. They were asking me what I feel about mirrors in class. And I said, nope, not a fan of them. And they said, well, can you explain why? And I've been asked this question so many times. And I said, sure. I said, it's the very simple reason that the moment you look in the mirror, you've changed yourself. The moment you've looked in the mirror, you've obscured your own self. The moment you look in the mirror, you try to be something you want to see. So you're not seeing genuinely. So don't look with the eyes into the mirror. Feel into the mirror of the soul. Feel. What is it like when I have this thought? What happens to me? When I insult myself, what happens to my physical body, to my heart rate, to my blood pressure, to my eyes, to my face, to my skin? When I deny my own capacity for goodness, for worthiness, what does that do to me? Do I feel healthy? Sick? So let the mirror be less an image and more an understanding of what's happening to you. Close your eyes and listen and notice how you react to this. No. 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 Take a breath. Notice how you're reacting. Notice what it's doing to you. How you're taking it in. Flutter your eyes open. How did you feel? Did you feel free? Did you feel spacious? Did you feel uplifted? No. Did you feel potential? Did you feel possibility or hope? Did you feel light? What did you feel?
I'll find another way. Yeah.
Desperate? Okay. Yeah.
But I was with her.
Yeah.
It hit me first, and I was like, that
You're
hurt.
right.
And then I was like, okay, now determination.
Yeah. What did you feel?
I felt anger.
Yeah. What did you feel, Crystal?
Same, just like pure rage.
Yeah. Anybody else got a word? Yes? Trapped. Yeah. Yes. Small. And getting smaller. Yes.
At first, I felt like hurt a bit, but then I started to try to think about it differently, and maybe it was not no as in a negative, but no as in we don't have to continue on doing the same thing. So I tried to change it to be less hurtful and more hopeful.
That's a very good practice, absolutely. But the reality is, most of you got it with regard to how you speak to yourself. When you look in the mirror and you say, I don't like you, you're no good, you're not worthy, you're saying no. Very few turn around and say, that doesn't have to be what that means. I can actually change it. So now close your eyes again. Take a breath. Yes. 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 Take a breath. Most of you were smiling. So did you have a different reaction to that one? Yes. Yes. Yeah. So what you're saying is say yes more. Even if you hear no, even if you're still telling yourself that same story, change it to yes. I do hear that story. Yes, I do know that that's what I tend to tell myself. Yes, I know it is not the truth. Yes, I am willing to change. Yes, I am willing to do the work. Yes. I am also willing to carrying the suffering for a little while, if need be. Absolutely. Yes. I'm willing to resolve. Yes. So that's acceptance. On the first level of it is to just say yes. I know that's the story. It's there. Yes, I know it is. Instead of saying no, no, no. That's not the way that I say. Or, outwardly, somebody might ask you a question and you try to make yourself appear like you're okay, but you're really not. You might say to them, oh, I don't have those problems anymore. No. Oh. Instead, just be honest. I'm a work in process. It's all process. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes students come and they think I have all the answers. I'm like, I don't have all the answers. I only have certain indications from my own life about what works pretty well and what really doesn't. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with falling flat on my face and being like, okay, I guess it's time to stand back up again. So you acknowledge that. You don't have all the answers. But yes, I'm willing to seek them out and to keep seeking until I find them. So that's where the compassion starts. The compassion starts the moment that you sincerely put your foot on the ground in search of the answers. The answers to what? The answers to your own suffering. That's where compassion begins. Acknowledging that all these stories, yes, they're there. Absolutely. And I can change them over time, eventually, with some hard work. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. There's going to be times where you fall flat on your face and times where you jump straight up in the air. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. But you can do it. Absolutely. And what will happen in the end of all of it is that you'll have a greater self-awareness. You'll have a greater awareness of what you're carrying with you that you don't really need to, and what you're carrying with you that actually serves good purpose, the good purpose of self-discovery, self-knowledge, self-awareness. Then you can start to put those other things down. You don't need to carry them. Sometimes when people say, I'm trying to find out what doesn't work for me anymore, what doesn't serve me anymore, and what they're typically egotistically talking about is other people. And that's not what that statement means. It means go inside of your own self. What are you carrying? Oh, I'm carrying hatred for that person. I'm carrying anger for that person. I'm carrying disappointment for that person. I'm carrying expectation for that person. Well, why are you carrying those things? Are they serving you really well? Well, they don't deserve for me to not be angry at them anymore. Really? So you're happy just keeping yourself contained in that little box of anger and keeping them contained in that little box of anger so that neither one of you can grow wings and fly like a bird. You're just happy keeping yourselves right there, so there can be no growth. Well, they have to change first. No, they don't. You have to. You cannot dictate another person's ability to change. You can only leave them alone. And then when you leave them alone truly, when you just leave them alone, when you have less expectations, somehow, many times, they find their way to being less irritating to you. Why? Because you have less expectation that they will irritate you. It's so true. It is. It's a good parenting skill to have. It really is. Good parenting skill. Just leave your kids to be who they are. You don't need to dictate their life, especially when they get older. But absolutely, even as children, let them play. Let them color out of the lines. Let them make the sky purple and the grass orange. What does it matter? What does it matter? Let yourself think outside of the box. Why do you have to be a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way? love a certain way, hate a certain way. What is it doing for you? The only thing it does is raise doubt. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And as long as you're asking that question out loud to somebody else, you are not feeling it for yourself. So I like to call it radical self-responsibility. Radical self-responsibility. Like, I am absolutely 100% responsible for myself. I am responsible for the way I live. I am responsible for the way I die. And I am responsible for all my choices in between. I am not responsible for your behavior. And you are not responsible for mine. Because I cannot dictate your behavior. I can only dictate my own behavior. And whatever you bring to me, the more I understand that radical self-responsibility, whatever you bring to me, whether it be pleasant or horrible, I will know that what I do with that is of my own accord. It is my own freedom. So you bring me flowers, and I can be grateful for them, and I can say thank you, and I can be a good person in my own ethic. In my own ethic. You bring me something horrible, you bring me a bunch of spiders. I like spiders, though, in all honesty, but let's just say I don't. You bring me something that's not pleasant and enjoyable, I dictate the way I receive that. I can receive it with gratitude. I can receive it with hate and harm and malice. I can receive it with self-pity. If I receive it with gratitude, then what I'm saying is, thank you very much. You are now giving me the opportunity to exercise what I have learned about myself. How to say, no, thank you. That's not a gift that's meant for me. You can keep it. How to say, the line is here. And I won't allow anybody to cross it. Not because I hate you, but because I love myself. How to say, the words that you choose to speak feel so harmful to my heart and my soul that I cannot have this conversation right now because I am not in a place to respond. I am only in a place to react. There's Dayananda back there. He's going to be doing some nonviolent communication programs in this year on Sundays when I'm away. And that's a really great way to learn how to speak that way, how to acknowledge that people choose their words and you choose your reactions to those words. The words that you have chosen to say, I am hearing it this way. And it's causing me to have a reaction. Therefore, I am not in this moment going to have this conversation because I'm reacting. Or you talk about your needs and your wants and talk to Dayananda. He'll fill you in on all that stuff. But the more that we're able to do that, the more that we're able to meet ourselves in a what I like to see as a more neutral ground, one that's not so filled with self-loathing and therefore loathing of all others, the more resilient we become, the more compassionate we become. Because what happens in that neutral space is that we start to see more clearly. We start to see that I've suffered in the past, absolutely, and I still suffer now, and I'm very likely going to suffer in the future. And you're not that different from me. And you're not that different from me. And you're not, and you're not, and you're not, and you're not, and you're not. We're all actually very much the same in that regard. We've all suffered in the past and we're carrying something forward from it that we don't know what to do with, that's hurting us. We're all suffering in the present and none of us want to. And a lot of times we're just constantly contributing to each other's suffering because very few actually understand that what other people do doesn't have to contribute to my suffering. What other people do doesn't have to contribute to your suffering. So instead, we just keep bashing each other. We just keep throwing it on the fire. making the fire bigger. And we're all going to continue to suffer into the future for as long as we're here because it's just part of this life. But suffering in the future, as Patanjali puts it, unnecessary suffering that could come about in the future can and should be avoided if you know how to. And you each know how to. So that's a lot so far. Questions or reflections so far? Savannah?
So I have a question. I'm not sure how to word it. I'm not sure how to put it. What can we do to take steps towards actually enjoying taking care of ourselves? For people who weren't taught how to enjoy it or how to take care of ourselves.
It's hard. It's a great question. Because there's so many emotions that go along with that, you know. There's emotions of guilt and shame. I shouldn't want to take good care of myself because that means I'm not doing something for somebody else. And I've always been told, take care of others first. Especially, not to demean the guys in the room, but especially as women. Right? It's burnt toast syndrome. Some of you have heard me talk about that, how women always take the burnt toast and give everybody else the golden brown. Got to stop doing that. Give somebody else the opportunity to have the burnt toast. So how do you come to enjoy it? Well, there's a lot of different ways. One way is to study how others receive. And when you give a gift to someone, like say you have a partner and you give them a foot massage, and you see them enjoying it and you hear that they're enjoying it, then that can be an indication to you. It can stimulate something within your own self about how it might feel. Be curious. I used to think for years that certain kinds of self-care were stupid, not worth my time, a waste of my time. Came to find out it's just because I was impatient. And I wanted quick results. If I was going to do something, I wanted to have immediate satisfaction, gratification, none of this wait and crap, no way. So I would not go get massages. I would not have Reiki done to me. I would not do my own feet massage or hand massage. I wouldn't do facials and things like that. On one side, for those who are staying for the Ayurveda, I'm Pitta Vata, largely Pitta. And if Pitta doesn't see the sense in doing something, it doesn't do it. But Pitta needs to have that. They need to have that self-care. So when I came into the study of Ayurveda many years ago, and part of my study was self-care practices, it's like pulling teeth. It's like, okay, so the teacher said I have to do this, so I'm going to do it. You know, I'd rather just get on my yoga mat and do 108 sun salutations. At least I could understand, you know. But then I started to dive in deeper into the why of it. Now, you have some Pitta in you too.
Vata Pitta, so.
Yeah. So to understand the why of it, to satisfy your Pitta side of your brain, because that's the goal-oriented doer, is the Pitta. So why should you do Abhyanga every day? Why? Because it feels good? That's not a good enough reason. Because the Abhyanga is actually what's going to soothe the nervous system. The Abhyanga is actually what's going to nourish the tissues of the body and restore a certain kind of a glow. The Abhyanga, it's what's going to help you detoxify from food, from beverages, from any type of substance abuse, from or use from emotions. The Abhyanga is what's going to help you to detoxify from those things, and it's going to bring about some semblance of greater health and wellness. So do the Abhyanga. And if you can't enjoy the Abhyanga at first, don't worry about it. Just know that what you're doing is actually healthy for yourself. So satisfy the Pitta side of the mind. Now the Vata side says, I really like the idea of that, but I really want to go there instead. I want to go over here instead. I want to go do this instead. I want to go do that instead. I want to just sit here and mope instead. You just got to have the Pitta side of you pick up that Vata side by the nape of the neck and say, let's go. We're going. But for the Vata also, Vata has an understanding of itself, the Vata side of the personality, that you're tired. Exhausted, probably. Overworked, under-rested. And the Abhyanga is going to support the alleviation of that feeling. It's going to support the alleviation of it. So just talk very nicely to the Vata part of the self, very kindly. Coax. Vata needs some coaxing. Let's just do this. Let's just do this. Pitta, you'll be happy. This is why we're doing it. Vata, let's just do this. Let's just see. Let's just see. Curiosity. Vata loves curiosity. So curiosity is another way. And again, don't think that you have to know immediately what pleasure feels like. Because you don't. You just have to have a damn good reason to give yourself. For those who are very fire-minded, it's the reason. This is good for my nervous system. This is good for helping me to detox. This is good for this reason, for that reason. For the Kapha-minded, this feels nice. Kapha likes that. This feels nice. This feels really nice. It feels pleasurable. This is also good for me. I don't really care about that, but it feels nice. And for the Vata, let's just find out what this is. Let's take the time and find out. And all those other things that the Vata wants to do, the traveling and the running here and the doing this and the having that adventure, this will support that so that you have a little bit more restfulness to yourself, a little bit more energy reserved so that you can actually do some of those things. And so the way we talk to ourselves, and yes, it is okay to have a conversation with yourself. No, you're not crazy. I talk to myself all the time. I don't know, maybe I am crazy. But anyway, so don't worry about knowing that this feels good right now. Because there can be blocks and resistances up to that. The sense of, I don't deserve to feel good. I don't deserve to feel pleasure. I don't deserve to feel relaxed. What have I done to deserve this? This is not worth my time. All those blocks, all those resistances are there. And so we may not have a clear view or perception of how to enjoy. So instead, we give ourselves a reason first. And over time, as that reason becomes validated, well, my nervous system did feel pretty good. So maybe I'll try this Abhyanga every night for 30 days before I go to bed and see what that happens. And then you learn about, does this actually feel good? You learn about that. You learn how to define it for yourself. Because no one else can define it for you. Other than to say, can't even say that really. Something that is enjoyable from a sattvic perspective is that which supports you in reestablishing homeostasis in your body and mind. And really, once a person becomes skillful enough at life, that can be anything. The problem is we're not skillful at life. We just want to be. Yeah. Is that supportive a little bit?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
How can you apply that to food? Because for me, I guess you could say, shadow of the past is eating.
Mm-hmm.
Is food. And when I don't eat properly, then all of my other practices fall apart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. First, know you're not alone. Yeah, first, know you're not alone. Food is such a powerful substance, such a powerful substance. It's the first way we understand the world. In the kosha system, the Annamaya kosha is the food sheath. They actually call it food. This physical body, it is food, and it requires food, and it relies on food, and it depends on food, and it wants food, and it is food. And so that's the first way we understand the world. So just know that right there, that is a tough one. So what can we do? The more we understand, the better. The more we understand different approaches to food, the better. You don't have to become a hardcore vegan or a hardcore macro this or micro that or fruitarian or whatever. Just understand the different approaches to food and understand that there's not one right way. So understand approaches to food and yourself. And then look at the choices that you're making. Really pay attention to them. Like last night, my daughter and my granddaughter invited me to go out to dinner with them. So we went to Red Robin. Red Robin has a Beyond Burger that they serve on gluten-free roll. And that's great. If we go there, that's what I get. And then a little side of French fries, no salt, right? You would think that was healthy. Not really. You would think it was healthier than some other things, right? And then I saw that they now have deep-fried Brussels sprouts. As done for. I love fried Brussels sprouts. Love, love, love them. So Casey and I ordered an order, and we split it. And Elena was not interested at all. She was like, ew. And so I said, I used to say that when I was your age, too. So just wait. So we had that, and then I had my regular also on top of that. And then I paid attention to how that made me feel, because it was just too much. It was just too much. Now, we were having a nice night. We were playing trivia. We were doing all these other things and just enjoying the evening. So the choice that I made was that I was not going to judge myself for the indulgence in that moment, because we don't get to go out to dinner very often, just the three girls, right? So I made the choice. I am not going to judge myself for the indulgence. And I let it go. But there are other times where I look at something and I say, do I want that? Now, if I have a small serving, it's fine. But if I go beyond that small serving, what is it that I'm going to feel? And I bring my mind through it, because I know my body habits by now. I know what irritates me and what doesn't, what causes bloat and inflammation, and what leaves me feeling light and airy. And I try to make the best possible choice. And sometimes that choice is to limit, and sometimes that choice is to allow. And I recognize that there's a place in between limit and allowance, which is the healthiest possible place. So every once in a while, take the cake. Not every day, but every once in a while, take the cake. And don't take the cake because for the last 30 days I didn't have any cake, because those last 30 days are the past. Don't carry that forward with you. It's this moment. Am I taking the cake because I really just want to taste the cake? Or am I taking the cake because am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? That halt thing that we've talked about previously for some of you, right? And then if you decide that you just really want the cake, then take the cake. And then let it go. Because once you've eaten it, it's in the past too. And then you'll deal with whatever consequences come with that, stomach ache, et cetera, and so on, inflammation, whatever. You'll deal with those consequences. As long as it's not taking the cake every day. But then there's the tendency to want the cake every day. Well, I had it yesterday. I could have it today. I will not go back and do those Brussels sprouts for a long time. They were really good. They were so good. But they'd be so much more healthier in my air fryer. Truly, they would be. So much healthier there. So then looking at it and just coming to that place where you can look at the choices you're making. And yeah, you're going to make some unhealthy choices. So just deal with, accept it. Deal with it. Just try not to make too many of them. Really try. And don't make the choices that are like super duper unhealthy, because those are hard to come back from, right? So stick to your guns. But if it's a little thing here, a little thing there, it's okay, because what happens when you deprive yourself completely, when you say no, is what you just felt before. And then when you see that cake and you have told yourself no, and there's not a healthy form of willpower cultivated within you to know why you're saying no and to accept that as the correct decision, you're not only going to take one piece or two or three, you take the whole freaking cake. So maybe the difference between those places is the cultivation of willpower within the self. And willpower is the ability to abstain or indulge in a given behavior for particular reasons and to be okay with it. Like it's the strength to continue on, but not to continue on by inflicting suffering necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's kind of roundabout.
Yeah. So my issue is with not eating at all.
Yeah.
Not wanting
Take the cake.
Yeah.
Take the cake. Yeah. In my life, I've gone from a size 2 to a size 20. I've been in those places and every place in between. I don't even know where I am now because I wear European sizes now, so I don't even know what the freaking U.S. is to that. So I'm just like, I don't care, But seriously, I've been in those places of great austerity where at 6 foot tall, I was a size 2. And I've been in those places of great indulgence where at 6 foot tall, I was a size 20. And I always laugh at the person who tells me, I don't see much difference. And I'm like, are you serious? And there's definitely a place in there where I feel my healthiest. And it's not size 2. And it's not size 20. It's not to absolutely do without and to nibble on lettuce as I walk through my day. Because those were some of the most self-conscious, miserable, depleted, tired days of my life. I mean, I like cake. I try not to like it too much, but I do. But in those years, there was no cake. So those were some of the most difficult years when I said, all I said was no to myself. And then there were years where all I said was yes, absolutely. And food was my sanctuary. Food was my way of trying to hide. It was my way of hiding. And so I dove in and I indulged. And those were years that were full of pain. Pain in my back, pain in my knees, pain in my head, pain in my heart, pain in my emotions, pain, guilt, etc. and so on. Because all I said was yes. Yes, give me that, give me that, give me that, give me that. When my husband was diagnosed with cancer and started dropping weight, I started gaining it. Because I thought that if I ate enough, he'd gain weight. So yes. Oh, man. But the place in the middle is the yes, no, no, yes. Not because someone else is saying it to me, or because I'm trying to live up to somebody else's expectations of what a yogi should look like or be like, but because I am working to discover within my own self where my health and wellness actually is. What combination of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And so I'm willing to succumb to the consequences of that inquiry. A couple extra pounds, fewer pounds. What the hell does that matter? What does that matter? What matters is that you come to the place mentally and emotionally where there's peace. And that's only found in the right balance. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So take a piece of cake and have a salad before you have the cake. And don't take the cake every day. And don't have the salad every day. Because they're both a habit waiting to happen. Yes, Dinanda?
Well, that's why we have ladoos, so you can have one.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
But one of the NVC classes I'm going to do is going to be about food.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested, but if you want to get a head start, Eat by Choice, Not by Habit is an awesome book. It's very short and small, but it's wonderful. And then on another note, I do a lot of fasting, so I will not eat for 5 days and just drink water and tea. And I like how that feels.
Sure.
But
me too.
I have to eat a lot more, before that or something. I have to have weight on my body, or I can't do that. But for women, and I was just reading a whole book about this. There's 10 days out of the month where they're eat your cake, and that you should not fast no matter what, because you're hurting your hormones. You're stopping actually the total production of a hormone that's essential for just you to experience balance. So,
and that's why in fasting there's so many different ways to go about it.
So many.
Fasting doesn't have to be no food. Fasting can be juice in the morning, fresh fruit, juice in the evening, fresh fruit, and then fasting during the high sun hours of the day. It can be a half a day. It can be taking excess sodium out of your diet. Don't add salt to anything for a day and see how you feel. Fasting can be a lot of different things for people. If you have an eating disorder, though, you have to be very mindful with fasting because it's a slippery slope. And it will egotistically take you somewhere you don't want to go. Just remember, it's not all no, and it's not all yes. It's yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, maybe. That's why I love my Hindu friends who do this. So it doesn't mean I had another friend who got a job working for a Hindu individual, and they came to me one day and they said, I'm so frustrated. I said, why? I said, because every time I ask a question, they do that. And I said, well, what are you asking? And they're like, well, instructions on how to do things, or, things that, I don't know, they should know. I said, well, that's their way of saying a few different things. Maybe they're saying, I don't know. Maybe they're saying, I don't have the question. Maybe that's just them thinking about it. Maybe yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I said, so ask with more clarity what it is that you need. And then say to them, if you're not sure of the answer, do you have any idea who we can go talk to get one? So it's always create more space, and more space for the possibilities of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's really a dance, it really is. And so another great way to look at food is if you have a big, big breakfast of pancakes and, whatever else that you all put on there, then maybe don't have a big, big lunch. Have a small lunch. And then have a really light dinner. Because the heaviness of the food that you ate at breakfast needs time to be processed. So give your body the support needed in order to process what's been eaten. That's something too. Because people have big breakfast, big lunch, big dinner. And then they're like, oh, stuffed belly. And it's like, well, of course, because just mashing food on top of food on top of food. So don't do that. Have one large meal a day and let the other two be small and supportive. And that way your body has a 24-hour time period in order to digest properly. Guarantee it'll change your bowel movements. Totally. It'll change all of your elimination to do it that way. We've gone over. You're welcome. But great questions, Savannah. Really great questions. Have a piece of cake. Yeah. All of you, one piece of cake. Very small, little tiny piece of cake. And savor it. Smell it first. And then take just a little bit of the part that looks the most yummy. Just a little bit on a spoon or a fork. A little tiny bit. Put it on the tip of your tongue. Let it roll back across your tongue into the different parts of your tongue that are responsible for absorbing the different qualities of rasa or essence of flavor. And then swallow. And then sit. And feel as it goes down the esophageal tract into the stomach, into the enzymes of the stomach. And what happens then? Like, have you ever paid attention to that? Take a little tiny bit of food, a little tiny, tiny piece, and don't take anything else for a few moments after that, and pay attention to what your body does with it. Can you associate with or feel the energy of the digestion as it's happening? It's really amazing. So cool. So cool. Yeah, I tell people all the time, when I have something that has salt added to it, I immediately feel the salt. My feet will start tingling. And I talked to my doctor about that, and he said, that's crazy. And I said, no, it's not. That's awareness. I'm telling you that as soon as I eat that particular food, my feet will swell. And the tingling is an indication that that's happening. And he just looks at me, and he's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Your blood pressure is normal now. It's okay. I'm like, yes. So true. All right, let's sit tall. Close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. And just know we'll continue this conversation. But do set a vow, as best you can for yourself right now, to cultivate a deeper compassion for yourself. That when you look in the mirror, know that the first things you say to yourself are just part of the story. And then close your eyes and search for a deeper feeling. The feeling of goodness, of wholeness, of health and wellness. A feeling of compassion. Let's lift our voices in one Om. Om Shri Matre Namaha. Thank you all so much for being here today. As always, such a blessing to see each and every one of you. And enjoy your brunch. If you're having brunch, enjoy your cake if you're having a piece of cake. Yeah, I know now everybody wants cake, right?
I was thinking that. What could I be?
I think they have nice scones down in the, yeah, very nice scones. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you.